So I thought about wearing all black today, Dave, because for some fans, the Dolphin season's over. We need to hold a funeral. They have been resting in a coffin since last week's 27-17 loss to the winless then Indianapolis Colts. But are we comfortable calling it a season, Dave? Even though we said last week was kind of a must-win, a pressure valve game because a loss would intensify the pressure that the team was under. These Dolphins happen to be 1-3 heading into Sunday's game against the Super Bowl champions. Yes, they're a hot mess, but Brian Flores' team was a hot mess at this exact point last year. Then the year before that, they started 0-7, looked like a disaster, worst team possibly in the NFL, and then went on to win 5 of the last 9 games. So, Dave Hyde, Sentinel columnist, I am asking you today, how much confidence do you have that the Dolphins can turn around this season and make it a winner?
Well, there's you go. That last question, they'll turn it around. Look, you look at the schedule came out. If they were 2-2, that'd be fine. You look at the back end of the schedule. They play one road game in 57 days. Okay, so the schedule was a little heavy, and it's going to lighten up here a little. But this wasn't about turning things around this year as we headed into it. It was about taking a progressive step forward. It was about seeing a lot of focus come into
the fruits of the harvest.
A lot of the pain and the sacrifice of the last 2 years was to start paying out this year. And, that's the question. Look, the offensive line can't be this bad all year, can it?
Yeah, it can. And in fact,
and I will say, I think this defensive line is going to be very good, especially when they get Raekwon Davis back. You get Christian Wilkins is playing well. You get Raekwon Davis. You've seen Jalen Phillips start to come on now in the last couple of weeks. Okay, as they've kept him in one role instead of moving him back off the line and everything. They've allowed him.
He's still in the same role, but they have him moving forward, rushing the quarterback, which is what they should have had him do.
And then we take Ogba almost as a given, I guess, because we don't talk about him much, but he's playing well. So I think the defensive line, as much as we question the offensive line for obvious reasons, I think you look for the defensive line is going to take a step, I think, this year.
Yeah, I think your point, this was supposed to be the year, and I thought it was a little premature. Remember when we sat and we had discussions and Brian Flores told Peter King that, this is the turning point. This is when we see all of the things that we built. It was harvest time. Well, when you harvested, you realized you had a lot of rotten fruit, and it just didn't taste right. And while I do believe that they can turn this around, right now I looked at the schedule and, I played the win-loss. And, COVID and injuries could factor in for either team. But I have this team at 6 wins right now, which would be kind of a disaster. And if you do not fix this offensive line and by, snowball effect, fix the offense, because I do believe the offensive line fixes the offense a little bit, it's going to be a hot mess. And
Omar, I'm just going in my head. They play the Jets twice. They play Jacksonville. They play Atlanta.
You really want to do this? You really want to do this?
I'm curious.
All right. Jacksonville, Atlanta, Houston, Jets twice.
That's 6.
And the Giants could be, the Giants maybe 7. That's it. That's all I got for you.
Well, they're going to win one of those other. I mean, I'm not saying. I agree with you that if they got to 9 and 8, you'd be almost thrilled by that.
Oh, God, that'd be a miracle. Probably be his best coaching performance.
And so realistically, 7 and 10 or 6 wins. Wow,
we're right back to where we started. Where we left, Dave.
That's the scary part. We're back to all the stuff they did to get away from as you call it, the mediocrity merry-go-round, we're back there.
And we are right back. Our first
spirit.
question comes from Claudio, who I've actually known, got a lot of respect for, young man that I've known since 10 years. He asked, is it possible to believe Flores is a good coach who also can't put an offensive staff together to save his life? If only Jim Caldwell didn't retire. And I think that Claudio is leading to a great point. I have always said from the very beginning, Tony Sparano and really Bill Parcells taught me a head coach's number one priority and the toughest part of his job is to put together a good quality staff. And I saw that with Parcells, with Tony Sparano. And then when he didn't have the Parcells backing, the Parcells muscle, it kind of got watered down. I didn't think Joe Philbin put together a good staff, even though a lot of his guys on that staff are now offensive coordinators or head coaches in the NFL. Joe happens to be coaching the best offensive line in the NFL, which what irony is that in Dallas? But Jim Caldwell quits, gets healthy, doesn't want to return. We fired. I forget who we fired after 1 year. He was supposedly Flores.
The New England. He's now in Cleveland as a receivers coach.
Correct. And then Chan Gailey comes here. Say what you know how I feel about Chan Gailey and what he did.
We're on the same page about Chan Gailey, right?
Yeah. The fan base, you're idiots if you thought that was bad last year. Now you know what bad looks like. You have
we've seen a lot of bad. Don't tell us Chan Gailey scoring points is bad. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Most points you've scored since 1986, and it's bad. Okay, great. Appreciate it. But this whole three-headed monster of Godsey and Studsville and Fry and who's calling plays, it reminds me of that Albert and Costello thing about who's on first. It's like the intent of it was to prevent people from getting the finger of blame, but yet it's such a disaster. Now nobody wants responsibility for it. They're just like, oh, I'm not calling plays. Nobody's calling plays.
To me, there's such a simple chain of command typically on teams. You go and I put this in a column. You go through the opposing teams they played this year. You go against New England. You know Josh McDaniels is calling play. Brian Dable with Buffalo. In Las Vegas, it's young.
In New England, you never knew who was calling the defensive plays. Think about that.
Well, we're talking offense here right now, and in who they played. Frank Reich is calling the plays for Indianapolis. It's very simple, okay. And now just asking who's calling the Dolphin plays, like you need a flow chart and a stopwatch because they have 15 seconds, and it's going from Godsey to Fry, but Studsville has some say, I guess, and at least in the week-long collaboration.
The guy who has the most say is Charlie Fry because he's the one giving the direction to the quarterback to look for this, look for this, look for that.
And that's because Tua was his quarter. He was Tua's whisperer. Okay.
But what makes him qualified? Here's the problem that I have with all of this. It's not looking good. It looks horrible. You have no offensive identity, and maybe that's because Tua's out and RPO is supposed to be your identity. But even when Tua comes back, let's say RPO doesn't work, then what?
Well, I'll step back. If RPO is your identity on offense, if that's going to be the signal centerpiece, then you shouldn't have got Jacoby Brissett. Because here's a guy, if that's the centerpiece, you need a guy who can run the RPO too. Because that's how it works. You can't just throw everything in the air and say, we're going to drop it.
But you act like veteran quarterbacks are just good.
Well, all I'm saying is you've got to find somebody to do that as well, okay? I mean, it might not do it great, but he's got to be able to do it, okay? And so, but I'm with you. I never rarely question play calling. Okay, in general, the general philosophy.
Me too.
But I don't know what this offense is doing from one series to the next, from one game to the next, as far as here's what we're good at.
But they never want you to know that, though. They want to continue to evolve. But here's the thing. Like, sometimes they'll call things, and I think they're trying to get too cute. Like, I'm sorry, end around to Jakeem Grant, like, good guy, and I'm not even going to discuss his trade because his stay here was exceeded longer than it should have been. Thank God they got a draft pick for him. But he had no business being on the offensive side of the ball on any snap. Like, why are you playing him over Mac Hollins? Like, only an idiot does that.
Well, I'll go there. I like Jakeem. I like talking to him. I like it. So, but beyond that, I get what you're saying. To me, it's a little different. Jalen Waddle had 3 catches for 33 yards early in the game. We never saw him again. Mike Gesicki, the first starting out the year, had 3 catches in 2 games. I mean, he's one of your.
He only comes into the game when the team's down 14 points.
Yeah, I'm confused by this. I'm confused by you. I'm not saying, we discussed this. I'm not saying this receiving core is as good as other people say. It doesn't have a number 1 receiver.
And I was other people. I will own responsibility for thinking that they would be good.
Well, but you know what you have. Devontae Parker, what does he do well? He goes down the field, goes up and catches jump balls. He's not a route runner. He's not going to give you this surgical decision making for the quarterback, and you're going to be on the same. He goes down the field. He can go up and he can do that a couple times a game. Get the ball into Jalen Waddle's hands 7 to 10 times a game. Get Mike Gesicki a couple plays and not the end around on 3rd down. Before we even get into the schematic and the offensive line and the problems that gives any offense, schematically, what are they trying to do? And it's like it does seem like there's 3 coaches with not conflicting ideas, but they're not on the same page either.
That is exactly what this offense looks like. It is. It's a collaborative effort, and it looks like a hot mess of you have 3 chefs in the kitchen, and there's no rhyme or rhythm to whatever you're doing. I've always looked at it as one guy's the run game coordinator, one guy's the pass game coordinator. Well, both aren't working very well right now. So you got to find.
Sorry to interrupt, Omar, but Will Mims has our next question. The Dolphins should have gone with the traditional rebuild before the 2019 season instead of a tank job. Agree or disagree?
No, I disagree because I'm at the point now where after 20 years, let's do something we haven't done. What we keep doing keeps not working. We've never tanked and been, well, not intentionally. The 2007 season was not an unintentional tank. But we've never, purposely been bad and traded away players. Now, the problem is what you got in return was not good. It was not good. You gave out Pro Bowl players, and you got back questionable NFL players. Not starters. Austin Jackson is your return for Minka Fitzpatrick. How is that panning out for you? Noah Igbenogany. How is that panning out for you? You made these conscious decisions to trade away elite players or proven NFL players, and not even just the draft picks you traded. Decisions you made this offseason to get rid of guys because of salaries and undo all your free agent moves. Don't think that didn't contribute to changing who you are as a team, because it did. And the Eric Flowers of the world could have helped you this year. Now, you got rid of them and fast forward, speed up your development, but your development of Solomon Kinley has not been very good.
Yeah, I first came out against this rebuild to the point a Dolphin executive went and had coffee, and I not because of that, but I think, do I want to fight this for 3 years? I never got on board Here's what I fundamentally don't like about any team doing this: throwing away season after season and saying, "Come back in 3 years and we'll see where things are." Okay, and it doesn't matter if you rebuild this way or you rebuild in a traditional way, which is get your draft picks. You got to have people recognizing what you got to get lucky. Maybe on a franchise quarterback. I think a lot of that's a dart throw, but at the same time, some teams get it right and some don't. So you got to get that right. You just have to be able to evaluate talent and draft talent. And, that's been no matter which way they've built or rebuilt or haven't built, that's the number one issue of every era in the past 2 decades.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they got it wrong, but yeah, they certainly missed on the guy who's the layup, who wasn't a layup in the draft process. But let's move on to our next question. John wants to know, why are our highest picks not developing? Coaching, talent, evaluation, or both? I'm going to go with both, Dave. Right now, there's no way that you could say it's not both. Look at Charles Harris, and I'm just going to bring him up as an example.
Don't do it, Omar. Don't do it. This is mind-boggling.
Charles Harris was a bust for 4 years here as a Dolphins player. Got traded to Atlanta where he was a bust. Now he's in Detroit. He leads a team with 3 sacks. How? Not to say that Charles Harris is a good player, but they found a way to make him work. Noah Igbenogany. He's on my man crush list, which means I vouch for him. I think he's a good player. At a certain point, Noah got in his head. And after that Russell Wilson beatdown, and Noah has never exited his head. And unfortunately, I watched him get exposed time after time again when Xavier Howard was sitting it out with an ankle injury, and Noah was getting all the reps he could want, and Tua was destroying him. But in this situation where you have Byron Jones, who's probably going to be sidelined by a calf injury, putting Noah Igbenogany on the field against Tom Brady would be committing suicide. You cannot possibly even consider playing him. So it's like, how do you, work with the psyche of these young players who are struggling? Same thing with Austin Jackson. Austin Jackson wasn't this bad last year. Somehow he's got in his head and he hasn't been able to exit it. And unfortunately, it's on a coaching staff to get the players out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Let's go back to, I don't mind swinging and missing on draft picks. Every team does it. If Noah Igbenogany is a swing and a miss, so be it. Look at Nick Needham. He was an undrafted player. Now he's their 3rd best cornerback. So it is not an individual swing and a miss. It's the collective. Who have they hit on? Who are their stars? Okay. And look, we might be talking about Raekwon Davis if he hadn't got hurt. I really think he's going to. But the point is, if you're going to go down this rebuild, they haven't hit on enough players. Okay. That is whether it's coaching, I'm sure at some point, and the commendable thing about Flores and Grier to me is they, for 2+ years, have been wedded together, right? They have had as far as we can tell on the outside, and I'm sure they've argued inside just like any team, but they have been wedded together. They've been, it'll be interesting as time moves on if they don't get the
playing game.
Yeah, we've been there before. We've been there all. So I hope it doesn't come to that with them.
That leads us to our next question, which comes from David. Chris Grier has been the Dolphins for 2 decades. I'm just trying to understand what metrics he's using to have so many free agents and top round busts combined with some quality late round undrafted pickups, I guess, to keep his job. And
yeah, look. When they went down this road, everybody knew. I wrote my first question to Steve Ross as he sat there beside Chris Grier after everybody had been fired is, why Chris Grier?
Why does he survive?
And his answer was, a lot of people have respect for Chris Grier, and they do. But he was the number one hire. before you get to anybody else. Steve Ross picking Chris Grier, and then Chris Grier picking everybody from there. That was going to either make or break this. And right now, there's just not enough. He hasn't hit on enough, and he's missed on the number one. 60%. How many times
has not missed? We cannot say it's a miss. He's the only quarterback since that's been drafted since 2019 who owns a winning record right now, 7-4. Let's not go there.
Okay, Omar.
Incomplete.
Last year and this year and next year, who would you rather have? Justin Herbert or Tua Tagovailoa? Maybe in year 4 or 5, Tua is the star. And I'm not saying he won't be. Please don't pigeonhole me into that. Okay, but all I'm saying is Justin Herbert's a star right out of the box. Right out of the box. When Peyton Manning came out and Ryan Leaf, the Colts, Bill Polian hired Bill Walsh to work both of them out. Hired Bill Walsh because of his ability to pick quarterbacks. And he said, Manning's going to be very good real quick. And Ryan will be better down the line. Okay, who do you take? I mean, who do you take? It's give me the guy who's going to be good earlier, right? I mean, it's so he missed.
I think we are at a point where if they don't turn this around, we're going to start to play the blame game. And what's going to happen is they're going to do the finger pointing of who's responsible for what pick and what player and what free agent decision. The one thing that I like about this situation is they're tied together, and Ross knows where all the bodies are buried. Ross has been there in every decision. He's heard what people were thinking in every decision. And so he knows who's accountable and responsible. So
let's since we're going down this, and you wrote a good column today on
we're going to talk about it in the next segment, Dave.
Okay, right. Okay, we'll get to that then. All right, when you're not happy with your quarterback, sometimes you develop wandering eyes. You have wandering eye syndrome, and that might be what's distracting quite a few Dolphin fans. Justin Herbert showcased his talent Monday in a win over the Raiders. Deshaun Watson rumors continue to linger and likely won't go away till the November 2nd trade deadline. And this week, Omar, you wrote a column saying Aaron Rodgers, not Watson, should be the option for number one for the Dolphins this coming off season. Let's go through that. Lay it out there. Why Aaron Rodgers? And then I have a few things to say, too.
Here's why it's Aaron Rodgers. Hall of Fame quarterbacks, no matter what the age is, do not become available very often. If there's one thing that this organization has not done is they've gone after the elite quarterbacks. We went after Tom Brady. We went after Peyton Manning, but we have not landed one. And yes, I know by the time Aaron Rodgers maybe gets here, he'll be 38 years old. But look at Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers is athletically a superior quarterback. The NFL rules protect you now as a quarterback to the point where you can probably play till you're 45 as long as your arm holds up. Who looks at Aaron Rodgers' arm and thinks that it's not going to hold up? That would not be me. And I say this from this standpoint. Everybody knows that Rodgers is going to be out there. Everybody knows that Deshaun Watson's already out there. He keeps flirting with Miami. He wants to his job. He wants to his city. He's going to Debo it till he's here. And I understand. I'm comfortable with that if that's the route that you go. And Russell Wilson is also out there, possibly if things go sour in Seattle. But Rodgers might be easier to land from this standpoint. Everybody, one, the Green Bay Packers are going to trade him to an AFC team. There's no way they're going to let him linger in the NFC. So that limits 16 other teams. Everybody thinks he wants to be with a West Coast team. Tell me what West Coast team is open and available.
Denver,
potentially. So if Denver is your competition, and I'm okay with that. I'm going all in, and I'm selling the location. Your movie star wife or fiance will enjoy Miami a lot better than she'll enjoy Denver. This can be a retirement home. You gotta lay your roots somewhere when you're finished playing. We got no state taxes, baby. There's a lot that you can sell about Miami to convince him that this needs to be the spot over Denver. Green Bay, Miami. Easy choice for me, Dave.
Yeah, well, let's look at this. What's the number one question on the Dolphins? Their offensive line. Okay, how do you sell that? How do you
not
sell
by
that?
this management,
How do you sell that to Aaron
Rodgers?
Rodgers?
Here's the thing, and I give Aaron Rodgers. I miss this. He gets Tom Brady power. You want a player? He's here. You want a lineman? He's here. Why would I not? The elite player. Look at what's happened to Tampa Bay. They were 7-19 when they got Aaron Rodgers. 7-9 for I believe 2 years. And then Tom Brady, all of a sudden, instant classic, instant Super Bowl contender. And I'm not saying, hell, you're offensive coordinator. Aaron Rodgers, you want to pick your offensive coordinator? Come on down. We'll let you pick your offensive coordinator.
I think you're getting a little ahead of things here in week 4 of this season, Omar. I
agree.
Here's the question. If we're going to play this, go to the offseason, where's Deshaun Watson's everything stand with him? He's your number one choice. He's your number one hope. He's 25, as opposed to Aaron, who will be next season, he will be turning 39. And I would take 3 seasons of Aaron Rodgers, but you know, I'd rather have Deshaun Watson at 25. I'd rather have Russell Wilson at, what's he going to be, 34, I'm guessing. So let's just hold. I'd hold off. And I got to admit, I think look, Steve Ross is giving whatever money this franchise wants, he's throwing it at him. He's making it rain. You want science a few years ago, we'll have the best science and analytics department. You want a new facility, here's millions, hundreds of millions for that. But at some point, it comes to his decisions too. Okay, it comes to his decisions. It isn't. You get what you deserve on some level at this. And Wayne Huizenga was famous for saying, and God bless Wayne, considering he was like Steve in that he would do whatever for the franchise. But he said, my business decisions have all been good. My sports decisions, and I was standing right. He's talking to me. He goes, my sports decisions, and that's where we are with Steve Ross. Okay,
that's fair.
Okay, and you know, first class operation everywhere except the one place everybody looks.
Does this next question? Does this 1-3 start make it more or less likely we see a Watson trade?
Oh, I think it's definitely more. I mean, the pressure is ratcheting up. Look what we're talking about. We're talking about Chris Grier. We're talking about Steve Ross. We're talking about the coaching. And so certainly the pressure is ratcheting up on them. The weird thing in today's NFL is if they'd won last week's game, as they should have against a 0-3 Colts, or 2-2, and for all the calamity of the first month, you'd be saying, okay, they got a chance to really pull themselves
got to fix everything.
Yeah. Salvador wants to know, do you think having Tua these last 2 weeks would have changed the result in any of the 2 games?
I think it would have gave you a chance maybe against the Colts. I thought you hit into a very good Raiders team on the road. That's a tough game to get, especially with your offensive line playing the way that they've been playing. I saw no excuse for the Colts loss, and I still don't see any excuse for the Colts loss. Maybe Tua helps you. I think Tua has better pocket presence, has better execution of the offense than Jacoby Brissett. Maybe, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to make you good. And I hate the thought that people have that, oh, Tua's going to come back and he's going to be our savior. Like he's just going to put the cape on and be our savior. And I'm reminded constantly by the Jay Cutler 2017 season where I watched him. Jay Cutler was phenomenal in practice. Now, nobody was hitting him in practice. He never had to worry about anybody hitting him in practice. So he just stood there and he slung it. And he had an arm to sling it. Now, when we got to the games, we're talking about a totally different subject because people hit him. And when he broke his ribs, it was very clear and apparent, even to his teammates, Jay Cutler did not want to get hit, and he was going through the motions to prevent himself from being hit. to the point where he pulled himself from the final game. You remember that? And said,
I do remember that. Yeah.
It said like, I don't want to play no more. And I worry that Tua's going to rush himself onto the field, be playing with a flak jacket behind a crappy offensive line, and I'm being polite here. I would have chosen a different adjective, probably an explicit word. And he's going to get roughed up, and you could potentially break him. And that's my fear.
Yeah, here to the question, would Tua have made a difference? He's clearly better than Brissett. I thought watching summer practices, there was a slight difference, but not really. Brissett was picking them apart too. For all the credit that Tua got, Brissett was picking the defense apart. And I thought, here's a guy with a lot of NFL experience that will come into play. Now, would Tua have made a difference? There were a couple times against the Colts, guys were running free early. By NFL standards, they were open deeper, and Brissett didn't go there. So would Tua have gone there? And that's really, what we're talking. Would have Tua have made a difference? And we haven't seen enough of Tua doing that to say absolutely he would have done it. He might have done it. He might have read things better.
The efficiency and execution that Tua brings takes you up a notch, and that helps your defense, and it helps your offensive player, and it helps your offensive line. The problem I have is that everything else around him just isn't good enough right now.
Another thing is this whole contraption of offense, how they're calling it and everything, was set up for Tua. Just like a year ago, everybody complained it was set up for Fitzpatrick, and all of a sudden, this was set up for Tua. Charlie Fry calling in that's Tua's guy. And so, there's a whole learning process now. We have a new quarterback, doesn't run RPOs, et cetera, et cetera. So would Tua have made a difference? I'm sure they would have be better, but they didn't look that great in the New England game. And, there wasn't enough sample in the Buffalo game other than disaster.
You're just getting your butt kicked in Buffalo.
Yeah. Chris Buston asks, will Steve Ross do what he normally does, which is wait 1 year too long to make changes?
That answer is absolutely. If there's two consistencies about Steve Ross, it's that he spends money, he makes it rain, and he waits a year too late to make a change. It's been consistent. So, I'm not saying that I know what the right move is.
Okay, that was my question. That was my next follow-up question. Okay, what do you do? We're not there yet. Let some of this play out through the season, okay? When we're talking what quarterback to go to, what changes to make.
Yes, and now then you change the GM, but you don't change the head coach, and then it creates a hot mess of a situation. We could make this a lot easier for ourselves if there was one czar out there who could just instantly fix it all. And I can't name that person. I got guys that I love and I like, as GMs and head coach. Brian Daboll, it's a crying shame that he has not been made a head coach in the NFL already. And if I'm the University of Miami, that's the first person I'm targeting and calling and saying, hey, do you want to run a college football program? You can bring Ken Dorsey as the offensive coordinator. It's all gravy. And I think he's going to be a phenomenal. We covered him here in 2011. He's one of still my favorite coaches here because we kind of got the same personality. We're both aggressive and in your face, which is why nobody's hired him. But I believe. Now,
after winning 35-0 and 40-0 on back-to-back weeks, Buffalo's defense is better than I thought. Their offense is on par with what I thought. So
basically
the AFC East, all we've done in the past 20 years is now Buffalo's where New England was, and New England's where Buffalo was, and the Jets and the Dolphins are just oscillating, back right there.
And let's point out that New England is right exactly where Miami is. They don't look very good right now either. So, and the magic of Bill Belichick hasn't been able to fix anything.
Oh, you're trashing Bill Belichick after a good game plan held Tom Brady to 19 points.
Tom was having sympathy on him. Tom was having. And here's the point: Tampa does not look very good. Tampa has not been playing very good for a while now. For it's been about 3 weeks. They're not looking that great. Now they've got a ridiculous amount of weapons, which we'll get into in the next segment. Even though Tampa Bay is the reigning Super Bowl champs, so many are acting like they're this unbeatable juggernaut in the NFL. But while Tampa does have the GOAT, the greatest of all time in Tom Brady, sorry, Dan Marino fans, the rings. He's got an arsenal of weapons and a pretty good offensive line. And the defensive unit, it's got Todd Bowles and Casey Rogers, who everybody knows I love Casey Rogers. Casey Rogers runs a defensive line that's going to punch you in the mouth. So Miami's offensive line, you better get your chin strap buckled up. But this Tampa Bay team does not look very good and has not looked very good for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, it doesn't have it. It's week 4. If you're the Super Bowl champs, as long as you, for the first half of the year, you just keep improving in little spaces. They got problems in the secondary. We all know.
Yeah.
They got Richard Sherman off the street, and he played all but 1 snaps against New England on Monday. But what they do,
Grimes, he should consider coming out of retirement because
what they do is they do more than anybody else. Is the one thing that will scare you if you're the Dolphins' offensive line. Now they blitz. They blitz more than anybody else, and you don't think that's the one way to protect their secondary. And so get ready. There it is. You're going to find out right off the bat whether the Dolphins have plugged some of their holes and solved some of their problems. And what's with
you know the answer before we even.
We can't say Brian Flores' team improved for the year, and this will be a quick test to see if they do.
And understand, it's always personal with Todd Bowles when it comes to the Dolphins. So
from his interim coach job, and he didn't get it. He
didn't even get considered.
Yeah.
So it's always personal, and Casey Rogers too. They ride together on this, and you can expect a can of booty whoop coming from this defensive line. And in Ndamukong Suh, who had to admit he was a horrible teammate in Miami. I'm glad the self-awareness is important, Dave. Sometimes, as you age, you become more self-aware of yourself. Proud of Ndamukong Suh for admitting I was a horrible teammate. Yeah, you were. I watched you. I watched you chastise and embarrass. I forget who it was. Some young player in the locker room, and I thought it was a borderline abuse. And I was like, man, you are a nasty human being.
Yeah, that was you talk about selfish. I never thought of a defensive tackle could be selfish till some of the teammates talked about how he would only do stuff that made him look good. Okay, but so here we go. That was years ago. The question to me in this game is Tampa Bay some human nature take effect? That was such a big game for them Sunday night, and a big game. I mean, Tom Brady's on the field afterwards saying, I'm not going to tear up, and talking about how exhausted he is. Okay. So now you come back home. Does this game in a 17-game season mean as much as it does to the Dolphins, for instance? In games like this, maybe the team it means more has a good chance to win.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins can shock the world. They just have to basically rattle Tom Brady. And we all know the only way to rattle Tom Brady is to actually get pressure up the gut. And who's going to get pressure up the gut here?
Well, it was interesting what New England did, which was 5, 6, 7 defensive backs. Okay, they were a lot of times just normal rush, and we're going to allow the 5, 6, 7, 8-yard pass, pick your way down the field, and then we're going to set up the fence at the 20-yard line. Brady was 1 for 7 in the red zone against New England, against Bill Belichick, who knew him better, and who else knows him well? Brian Flores. So yeah. I would expect a similar game plan. The one thing is they did a lot of man-to-man, various man-to-mans, and the Dolphins, 1 week you'd want Byron Jones is a week like this where you want as many cornerbacks and coverage guys as you could have.
Yeah, there's only one Xavier Howard. And right now you're going to have a tremendous game from Nick Needham and some of the other guys. I don't know if this is a game that I'm playing Noah, because we might be looking at a Michael Thomas situation where, even though Michael Thomas won that game for Miami back in, God, how long ago was that? You know that if Noah Igbenogany is put on the field, he's going to be under attack.
Yeah. Well, who was it? New England brought in somebody for a play or two because there was an injury in the backfield. It was like a third or fourth down, and right away, first play, bing, Brady goes right at the guy for a first down. All right, CJ asks Omar, with all the playmakers Tampa has and our inability to sustain a drive on offense, how ugly is this game going to be? I see our O-line versus their defensive line, and I can't help but think Jacoby Brissett is in for a long, painful day.
That would be correct. I don't see any way that they don't get abused on the offensive and defensive line. And I know they just possibly lost Antonio Winfield, their safety, who Dolphins should have had and should have drafted. A long list of players the Dolphins should have had and should have drafted.
Well, I said Brian Flores' favorite player, he said, was his dad.
Yeah.
So that was always interesting. Well, they looked at, no doubt they looked at him, but
should have done it. Should have done it. But I love the way that Tampa Bay, if we're going to talk about the pressure on the defense, you're able to play the way that you're playing in the front four and the blitzing because of the way that Levante David and Devin White perform and execute and just consistently deliver as linebackers. And you that should have been – the Dolphins were in play for Levante David. Now, they obviously didn't make a good enough job to get him to leave Tampa Bay, but clearly they identified that there was an issue that they needed to clean up and showed some interest. The problem is they didn't clean it up. They didn't clean up that issue. The linebacker play is still kind of troublesome. Not kind of. It is troublesome. So it'll be interesting to see how not only just how Tampa Bay attacks Miami, but and they will bring it. Jacoby Brissett. It's Jacoby Brissett. Who do you fear?
Well, but they brought it against Mac Jones. Why would they fear Mac Jones? And he went 6 for 6 for like 75 yards down the field for a touchdown to put New England in. I think Jacoby Brissett's going to have chances. Okay, this isn't the dominant Super Bowl defense, and maybe it becomes that. But right now, as you've alluded to, that they're not the team they were, and why would they be in Week 5? The tone of the question is it's going to how ugly is the game? The Dolphins are going to have chances to win this game. I don't think this is going to be a 20-point win or 40-0 like Buffalo had. I mean, this is the NFL, and you're going to have your chances, and they got to make those 4, 5, 6 swing the tide for them.
Yeah. Let's go to our final question of the show, which comes from John G. How will this interior O-line hold up against Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh? Is this the best defensive front the Dolphins will face all season? Let me look at the schedule real quickly. Yes, that is the best.
Well, you saw Vita Vea has become everything that they'd hope. And Ndamukong Suh isn't the defensive player of the year candidate that he was earlier in his career, especially in Detroit more than the Dolphins. But he's still a nice force to have on your line. And the real problem is
1 sack.
The real problem is the Dolphins aren't running the ball. I mean, we've been talking about the blitzing and all that. They have 35 yards rushing last week. They're like everything else, they're down in the bottom of the league as far as yards per carry. I mean, to help the quarterback, you need to run the ball. Now you're going to go against a very strong defensive tackle backed up by a strong linebacking core. It's going to be real tough to run the ball this game.
Yeah, but you should run the ball. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but you got to create some sort of balance. And I felt like they should have been using these games to create a run game identity. Obviously, 35 yards last week. They had 133 the week before, but then, they kind of strayed away from it. Interestingly enough, 23 of those 35 was in the first quarter. So if they would have just kept running, maybe they would have had a better result. But to me, the biggest issue is the identity of this team. And part of the identity issue is caused by the offensive line. Just think about it and hear me out. Two of your best offensive weapons are your running backs. I watched all training camp. Myles Gaskin, Salvon Ahmed. And then another one of your weapons, Mike Gesicki, a tight end, really a slot receiver who cannot pass block. Well, all three of those players, all three of your top weapons cannot be on the field. Why? Because they're a liability in pass protection.
Right. That's the problem they found with Myles Gaskin. Whenever he's on the field, the other teams, we're bringing it. We're going to have a linebacker who has 40 pounds over him. Good luck trying to block him.
I think he can do better than he's shown earlier in the season if he got a little help from the offensive line and from the tight ends and from the quarterback. But you know what, Dave? At this point, and you know where my focus is, and my focus is always until you fix that offensive line. It's like the color purple. Ain't nothing you do gonna work for you.
You know what? We've seen this before, though. 2008, the offense looked like crap all preseason.
What year did the offense not look like crap?
Chad Pennington comes in, and all of a sudden everything looks really good. Okay, and so I hate to throw this out too. Justin Herbert, their offensive line was awful last year. Their coaching staff was awful enough to get fired, and yet he looked very good. He set rookie passing records. They were in every game. I mean, so yes, it's the offensive line, but you know there are other places you could help the offensive line that they're not getting help. So, all right, prediction time, Omar. Your favorite time. I think we both predicted the Dolphins to win last week. Here we go. Who you got? The Super Bowl champs or the 1-3 Dolphins?
I'm going 28-14 Super Bowl champs. I just think there's no defense you could throw at Tom Brady that would even bother him. There's no way you can confuse him. This defense is based on confusion. It's based on catching the quarterback in a mistake or catching the offensive line in a mistake. Their offensive line is way too good. And you're not going to win with that kind of approach.
I'm going with Bucs, Tampa Bay, 31-17. And my issue, I think the Dolphins will have a chance, but you look at the real sort of an indicator of problems for the Dolphins. The Dolphins defense has been on the field, I think it was 38 minutes in 3 of their 4 games. The other one was almost 32 minutes. They have been kept on the field. They can't get off the field, and the offense can't help them get out to the point they're going to wear out in Tampa Bay. So,
all right. Well, Dave, it's always a pleasure to be here with you on X's and Omar. You can find X's and Omar on anywhere you find your podcast. It will be up on the iTunes and the Spotify playlist. You can find X's and Omar's here on the Sun Sentinel's website Wednesday at noon. Dave, we will be back next week to dissect the body.
Wait, have some optimism.